not yet 2. Mirren gave me a bag of tiny clothes, nuts, babas, and dollies, another of cloth diapers. I had taken care of Molly every other weekend since the separation, so I had provisional things. But I would scramble to find a real crib, a dresser, a proper changing surface. She checked herself into a facility that night, as she would again and again for 20 years. Up and down each year, she spent a lot of time in hospitals before taking Correll. About 6 weeks in as a single parent, I was failing with my foam core, a senior art project. I couldn't curse. Molly was sleeping 10 feet away. I crept outside and found a place near the window so I could hear her if she woke up and called out. I didn't know what I was doing. I pushed my face into the dark grass. I moaned. I couldn't abandon her, but I wanted to. God forgive me, I wanted to. In fact, I thought constantly, who can I take her to? Who would relieve me of this? If I'd had family nearby, I don't know. None of them were a better choice than me, but I chewed it over a lot. That night, I howled, afraid to wake the neighbors. With each rasping intake, I inhaled dirt and dead debris. I finally reached that skin of pins place, the skeletal feeling of empty, and sat up. I went back inside. I turned out the light, rocked on the edge of my mattress, and waited for the 5 a.m., stared at my unfinished project. On that night, in that hour before dawn, my marrow filled with steel. My limbs shook. My muscles changed as boyish, awkward excess was replaced with a man's taut reserve. This perplexes me still. Believers have ready explanations. I don't. What changed in me was organic. It was my grandmother Anna. She raised my mother alone during the Depression. Her grave, her grace, her humble work, her commitment to self-learning was steady. Her love for me shimmered that night in the cobalt blue of our small room. Not long after, Mirren came to us. I was still in love with her. She was having a psychotic episode. Her pinpoint pupils, odd affect, and frozen stance put me on alert the moment I opened the door. So I stepped out. I told her she couldn't take Molly for the day. She couldn't come in. My hand behind me, I closed the door. She was in another state, and my duty was to my baby. Mirren and I teetered in that tick-tock hall. Insanity came off her like sunburn, like liquor and lotion and vomit from her pores. I didn't do fight or flight. I stood my ground. I was ready for something. But I was afraid, and I didn't hide it from her. Love was what I switched on, like a beacon on high rocks. And the only kind I had to give at that exact moment was to tremble before her. It couldn't hurt, I remember thinking. She backed away with a murderous gratitude and walked slowly down the stairs. I followed, not pursuing, but definitive. Our stitched-up smiles fixed upon each other, a walk of 1,000 shifting hesitations. She muttered non sequiturs and fighting words as she left. From the window, I watched her sit motionless in her car for over an hour. She told me years later she was glad I'd turned her away. She had her dead-cocked father's loaded .38 in her bag, a rifle and ammo in her car, and she told me with chagrin. In her kaleidoscopic, shifting mythology, she put love of Molly first. She chose life. And I love her still for her ragged strength.